got to push himself. And I think that's one of the really good things, is that they got to put the kids in sort of this safe environment that also allowed them to kind of push their limits and to do more than they thought. And I think that was big for our son. Well, for me, I actually have worked at that camp since '97, so I have a personal connection to it. I was there as I first went as a cabin leader, and then I actually eventually became the program coordinator there. So I ran the summer program for a few years, and then I ended up actually being full-time staff. So I have a special connection to the camp. I know what makes it unique compared to other camps. I did camping when I was a kid, so I knew sort of the directors at Medeba, their approach to camping, where they don't see it as just a old school rustic camp. They saw it more as like a children's resort. And so that mindset, me being there and knowing that's what they're like. And one of the directors has always been having the Wonderland philosophy of always wanting something new every year to entice the kids, or the Disneyland philosophy where he wants the place to be immaculate and clean and immersive for the children. And knowing that mindset and being part of it, I just knew it would be a really special experience compared to the other camps maybe that I went to as a kid.
I'd say that probably the caliber of programming was really appealing, and knowing just the level of expectation that they have for their staff, knowing that the kids would be in good hands was a key factor as well. And yeah, the fact that they let the kids adventure and they have some pretty unique programming that not many other camps have.
Yeah, just to jump off what she said, I know again from my experience of being there, I know how strict they are with the staffing and how rigorous they are, making sure they get people that really do love children and are attentive and creative and imaginative and just very safe and responsible. Being within that, I know that that was a huge priority for them. So like her, I knew that our kids would be safe. I knew they were going to be top-notch staff. So Medeba, a year prior, they did family rentals because of COVID, and they couldn't do summer camp. So our kids would have been able to stay at a cabin with us for a week, and so they got to see the camp and they got to see what it was like. But at that time, activities weren't available, but they got sort of a taste of what it is. They did mountain biking, and they got to sort of see what the grounds were like, and it got them really excited to then want to come the next year. And then this past year would have been the first time of really experiencing kind of camp.
Well, definitely with the programming, I think the kids really enjoyed their time there. It was really neat to see our one son, who isn't really a sporty kid, was able to participate in some activities that aren't your traditional sports, and he really excelled at them. So it was neat to see him thrive in that sort of environment.
Well, I think that was a big thing, is
Or not the campus, the counselors.
with with mountain climbing, so rock climbing, the climbing the wall, he got to succeed at that and do really well. So I just want to jump off what she was saying, was he got that sense of achievement. He got that sense of victory of being able to be really great at being able to achieve at a rock climbing and do maybe a lot better than he thought, and he got to push himself. And I think that's one of the really good things, is that they got to put the kids in sort of this safe environment that also allowed them to kind of push their limits and to do more than they thought. And I think that was big for our son, because he's very goal oriented and he's very yeah, big on achievement. And so I think that was a big takeaway for him, is that sense of accomplishment. And then our daughter is much more social. And so her experience is more kind of connecting with the cabin leaders. And I think she had a good experience of, I unfortunately can't quite remember their names, but I know she talked with them fondly every night when she came home. And so it was bigger, or to the cabin, it was bigger for her being able to connect with these cabin leaders and be able to talk to them, and just sort of spew her week to them and all her knowledge, and then just kind of build those friendships. And they were really warm, and they connected with her well that way.
Well, one thing too with the staff is because they do try to keep the ratios pretty low. So it was pretty much 2 leaders per 8 kids. You saw that personal connection being made where the counselors really went out of their ways to get to know the kids. And it wasn't just the counselors, but it was also program staff, or even the directors, and the program directors and the summer directors. They were involved with all levels of programming. So they would know like different kids' names, and they would say hi to kids as they walk down the path from one activity to the next, which I think when you're looking at a bigger camp, that can certainly get lost, because when you have, upwards of 400 kids, that there's no way you can get to know all of them. So that's a really nice thing that Medeba also really focuses on, is that relationship building. And they really encourage their staff members to connect with the kids, even beyond the week that the campers are there. So
Yeah, that's actually a really good thing to point out. Was, again, someone like my daughter, who was very social. Not only did she connect with the cabin leaders, but yeah, the program director, who's considered higher up, a leader type, would always spend time talking to her and give her a few minutes every day, and joke around with her and play with them. So that's something that really good, is every level there was some relationship.
I was definitely going back to the success that Everett had on the climbing wall. Again, like I said earlier, where, in the traditional setting, at school or whatnot, he's not really the sporty kid. But for him to be able to succeed at something that, the athletic kids actually couldn't do. And it was funny because they were comparing themselves to one of their cabin mates. And they're all saying, oh, because he went up with his cousin too. He said, oh, so-and-so made it to this point. And then when Everett actually made it and then went beyond, he was just over the moon of that, because they're like, oh, you beat so-and-so. And that was really neat to see him realize that, just because I'm not sporty doesn't mean that I can't achieve, physical challenges. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing. And then with Danica, yeah, I think just it would be more relationships, and being able to connect with independence.
I'm learning more independence.
Well, definitely, I think I really think that Everett's success at rock climbing was a huge positive milestone moment for him. And so that would have been a big thing. I think him being able to feel that he was one of the best at that, because that's something he talked about weeks after that, and he still sort of mentions it. And even I think that was a moment where now he'll even say, I'm a good rock climber, like I'm good at climbing, guys. But I think that was something he didn't take ownership of until his Medeba experience. So I think that's crucial, where he really started realizing that. For Danica, maybe again the independence thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she's still young, so it's hard to really know what kind of growth came out of that. Or for her, it was just fun, right? Because she's such a social person. We may not see those impacts right away. Yeah, but for sure, I think, I don't know, confidence, acting, I don't know, being herself. Those are all things that I think Medeba helps with, because they foster that and encourage that. Oh, I know something that they did too, is they were actually both picked at one of the weekly kind of challenges. On the end of the week, both of the kids were actually picked by their cabin to represent their cabin in the boat building, who can stay afloat for the longest. So I think that in and of itself is huge for them, to find that they are a valued role, or they have a valued role and member as part of the cabin. So I think that, yeah, that's also a really important thing that they would have gotten out of one of the weeks they were there.
Like with someone like Everett, just encouraging him to try the new things and like celebrate him when he does do those. Like that's a big thing. Even at school, he started signing up for all these different sports, which again is not necessarily his thing, but we've been trying to encourage him and say we're so proud of you, and if you don't succeed, we're proud that you're taking this attempt. And so I think with Everett, that would be a big thing for us, is just constantly encouraging him and celebrating when he sort of goes out of his comfort zone, because I think that's a big thing for him. And then
Well, it's for Danica. I know one thing, well, for both of them, is the aspect of being willing to take risks. You know, the great thing about Medeba is because it is an adventure-based camp, they're all about learning about yourself through risk-taking, but in a controlled setting where it's safe. So, yeah, I think that's the great thing as parents, is for us to be able to kind of push our kids to take those risks and know that they're going to be safe and that they are measured risks that are okay to take, and that growth and stretching their comfort zone only comes from that. So yeah, I think we actually really were hoping as parents too that that the kids would take a stand and want to, or would speak up if there was an activity that they wanted to do, even if, let's say, even their counselors didn't feel like doing it, or they're sort of giving it out, or if their cabin mates were like, no, we don't feel like going down to waterfront or go canoeing, or because that did come up. You know, we said, no, like if you wanted to do it, speak up and say, because it's fair for you to have a voice and don't feel like you have to be pressured into what everybody else is saying. So that was something that we also did as parents. So.
I think one of the things I would do so that they get a proper idea is, because I think when you think camp, sometimes you think rustic and you think sort of like archery and canoeing and that's kind of it. And so one of the things I try to sort of put here is sort of like small scale camp resort, because the idea of that, I think the food is a lot better than any camp food I've ever had. Their mindset is very much about this being a week vacation for the kids, something that, I mean, it's pushing them, and there's a sense of adventure, and there is values they want the kids to get, but it's about them having a vacation. It's about them having a really enjoyable time. And I think so many of the activities they have there are just fresh and different, and like the zip line and the high ropes and the mountain boarding, all these different things they didn't have. And so I would encourage, like, think less camp and think more sort of resort, but kind of small scale resort, because unlike these camps where there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids, here
And
it's smaller.
Yeah,
so it's not like, it's not the big massive expensive stuff, but it's things that I think are exciting and push kids, and also it's small enough where you could almost know every camper at the camp, which is kind of nice.
And they love it, and they can't wait to go back, and that everyone should go to this camp. Yeah.
Yeah, Everett's already told several of his friends that they need to go to Medeba. So
yeah, and even before they were going, they would tell their classmates or tell their teachers, "We're going to Medeba," or as Danica would say, "We're going to Medeba." It's like, no, it's Medeba with a B, not a V. It's really cute.